in a moment, we've got a really important panel about how much business is driving travel and also sustainability in travel, which is quite interesting. I do want to say one thing. If you were thinking about bunking off tomorrow, you'd be making a big mistake, because we have some amazing panels. And one of the most anticipated moments will be the keynote from Aziz Abu Sara, an extraordinary leader who embodies the very spirit of reconciliation and transformation through travel. He's both Israeli and Palestinian. He's a peace builder. He co-founded Majdie Tours, and he will remind us that travel can do more than just move people. It can connect hearts, build empathy, and bridge divides. So I really recommend you come here for that tomorrow. Okay, as I said, it's really important to remember how much business how much business powers travel and influences travel policy. It's interesting, I've heard that Airbus say that the plans they're designing have business travel mostly in mind, and obviously businesses are under the auspices of regulation, and they are in many ways forcing the issue and making sure that sustainability is at the forefront of future design of planes and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, let me hand over to Delphine Millot, who is the Managing Director of the GBTA Foundation, who you must have all heard of. And I will let Delphine introduce the panel.
Thank you, Rajan, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed your lunch and maybe a glass of wine. I'm excited to see such a full room for what I think is one of the most important topics that we could be discussing right now about how corporates are navigating uncertainty. I'm joined by an exceptional group of leaders who work at the intersection of corporate travel, sustainability, and innovation. And I'm going to introduce them in a minute. But before, I wanted to set the scene for this discussion. Because we chose this topic very intentionally, because the signals that we're getting from corporates at the moment are quite mixed. Across industries, we're hearing that some corporates are softening their sustainability commitments. In the US, we even know there's a greenlash due to political and economic pressure. And meanwhile, in Europe, because of the reduced regulatory scrutiny, we're seeing a time where maybe it's a pause or it's a recalibration, but the signals are indeed very mixed. So that raises an essential question that we're going to unpack with our panel and try to answer today, which is, are companies actually retreating, or are they simply becoming more strategic and selective about what they say publicly versus what they do privately? And as Rajan said, we're going to try to unpack this through the lenses of business travel. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we talk about business and corporate travel. I also want to make sure that you're all awake after lunch. So I'm going to ask for a quick show of hands. Can you please raise your hand if you've taken more than 3 business trips since the start of the year? Okay. Yes, you can participate. So yeah, that's almost everyone in this room. Now, I want you to raise your hands if your organization places sustainability as one of the top priorities and key components for all of your business trips. Raise your hand if it's really a priority, over costs, convenience. Okay, that's less people, and we know that. And the reason why, the sustainability debate matters profoundly for business and corporate travel is because we are a $1.5 trillion industry that touches every aspect of the travel ecosystem. And I'm going to tell you more. I think that corporate travel and business travel can be a catalyst for change through the entire travel ecosystem. We're seeing that net zero goals and commitments from corporates have already been driving innovations through hotels, airlines, and ground transports. But what worries us, or at least worries me personally, is that we're wondering if travel suppliers are going to continue to invest as much as they've been doing if the market is not there and if the demand signal is not there. So again, we're going to try to unpack this complexity with our panels. I'm going to go in the order for what for me is left to right. So we've got Ben Park, who's the Executive Director of Travel and Sustainability at Parexel. Olivia Ruggles-Bryce, who's Vice President of Sustainability at BCD Travel. Ziad Minkara, CEO of CDS Group. And Jesko Neuenburg, who's the Global Travel and Aviation Lead at Accenture. And for the room to understand the perspectives that they are bringing, I would like to ask each of you to explain your role and how it connects to sustainability in travel. So again, Ben, would you like to go first?
Yes, happy to. Good afternoon, everybody. And Ben Park, I'm sorry you have to listen to 2 German accents today here on stage in advance. So I'm a corporate travel manager, so I organize travel for my company. They've got like 25,000 employees in 52 countries and generating around 85,000 trips, but with this also $65 million in spend. And so that's the role to organize the policy and the suppliers and steer them in the way they travel. The other role I played, which is a little bit unique, is that I also was leading the sustainability efforts for the company. And so I built the ESG report, I set the SBTI goals. So basically I've got this unique position on combining and understanding, hopefully, the sustainability element, what matters with scope 3.6 for business travel, and as well the travel pollution coming from business travel. And that's why in our role, I connect both of these dots. And my last point is because Parexel, the company name, doesn't say anything to anybody because we're B2B. We're doing clinical trials for the pharma companies. And the pharma sector is very keen on sustainability and reduction. And that's why we get really hard pushed for sustainable travel, which is still necessary to conduct business. So we are in this dilemma. We need to travel to do our job, but they want us to have less emissions.
Thank you, Ben, for explaining your unicorn position. Thank you. Olivia?
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia. I'm Vice President of Sustainability at BCD Travel. We're a travel management company, and we work with companies to travel smart and achieve more. We have 15,000 employees across 170 countries. My role is sustainability, so I look after our corporate sustainability, but also the programs that we have working with our customers, who are travel managers such as Ben, to reduce their emissions and embed sustainability within their travel programs.
Thank you. Ziad?
Difficult after this beautiful English accent that she's having here. I'm Ziad Minkara. I'm the founder and CEO of now S4BT, Solution for Business Travel. We deliver solution for corporates. We do work with same corporates in order to put solution for their business travel. And as a wing today, you cannot see it from far, but I put a tie with butterfly that flows without pollution. And I put a pin from a rocket, from clients, from aerospace, because I don't split these 2 words. And we're going to talk about sustainability, how we can help the corporates in order to reduce and to go on the zero carbon 2050. And we're going to talk about this. Very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesko?
Thanks, Delphine. And hi, everyone. So my name is Jesko. I have a dual role. I lead the Travel Sustainability Center of Excellence globally within Accenture. And I'm also, which means working with clients in hospitality, airlines, and so on sustainability topics. And I'm also working very closely with our internal corporate travel team to help decarbonize our own travel. We have close to 800,000 people globally, so it's a lot of people that get on planes and go places. And so we have a quite extensive agenda to kind of decarbonize that activity. And trying to bring in both of those perspectives in the discussion today.
Thank you. So lots of dual roles, dilemmas between, you know, like the willingness to see business travel continue to grow and thrive, but also reduce emissions. And so we've got a question that we need to tackle today, which is silent signals or bold moves. And this is what I would like to ask to our panelists. Please, 2 minutes each. I would love your perspectives from what you're seeing from corporates. Is sustainability still firmly on the corporate travel agenda, or do you think it's slipping quietly off the radar? And if I can go in reverse order, Jesko, would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. And I think, as you said before, we are seeing mixed signals. So some of our latest research with 2,000 CEOs globally actually asked the question, are you still committed to sustainability? And 99% of CEOs said, yes, you know, we are maintaining or even expanding our commitments on sustainability. So that was very encouraging. 88% of those CEOs also said, actually, the business case for sustainability is stronger today than it was 5 years ago. Again, very positive signals. But then we also did some analysis on some of the investor calls that companies are doing. And there we can actually see that the communication around sustainability peaked already in 2021 and has now declined by about 45% since then. So people only talk about half as much about sustainability as they used to. And then, of course, there's also examples of companies that definitely do pull back a lot of times on reporting topics. So the whole ESG reporting hype we kind of saw, I think we're seeing that kind of flatten out, and people are a bit more wait and see, especially given some of the changes on the regulation as well. So I think it is a mixed picture, but I would say a bit quieter, but still, you know, definitely moving forward on the sustainability agenda is what we're seeing.
Okay, so would you go as far as saying that it's almost green hushing that you're saying, with companies continuing to do it, but being more cautious about communicating about it?
For sure, the communication element is much subdued, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Ziad?
First, as a CEO, I have to be committed on sustainability and show the example and to do it first. But on the client side, I cannot say it's uniform in the world. We don't have the same commitments from clients or corporates that are on the US market that are in Europe or Asia. So it's not something smooth and uniform, but if we want to go focus on Europe, where we have our major client, it's a major topic. And the major topic is, how can we cope with sustainability and prices is always like this to reinforce this. And we can see, and we discuss it with the panel, that is on the top of the list. There's a lot of actions that has been done, and we are all looking for responsibility, because in CSR there's the key word also of responsibility of the CEO. CEO, yes, companies are leading by the example, and we're seeing also clients that are taking business travel as a flagship for that. So quite positive on my way on that, yes.
Okay, but you're saying that we cannot paint the world with the same brush, that there are still like
exactly
differences,
yeah.
okay,
differences
in terms
by
of
the
geographies. Yeah. Thank you. Olivia?
Yeah, I think it's definitely impossible to have a one-size-fits-all answer to this. What we're seeing is that at a high level, corporates are still focusing on sustainability. If it was strategically important to them before, it still is. And we're seeing investments there and continued focus on that. The big change is this kind of laser focus on materiality, so what's really important to the business. And when that translates into travel, then we see it in travel as well. So if travel is a large proportion, say, of the emissions of a company, then they continue to be very focused on it. When it's less so, then the focus is perhaps not there, except where they are using it very specifically as an engagement tool, as he had mentioned, because there's a huge opportunity in travel to kind of use that as a means to talk to your employees, and sustainability as a means to do that. So it's kind of different. It's different where you are in the world. I think that what we're actually seeing is where before there was a lot of noise, the noise has gone. But it was only noise. Where there were actions, there's still actions. And actually what we're seeing is a lot more progress being made because there's less noise.
Okay, and you introduced an interesting concept around materiality of business travel emissions. Do you have a way of defining when business travel are actually material, emissions are material for a company?
It depends on the kind of company and what they do, and we tend to break it down very simply in, like, I think 10%, 20%, that kind of thing, but it really depends.
But I also liked what you said about the fact that business travel emissions are very visible. So even if they're a small percentage of the total emissions for companies, for instance, in manufacturing, this is still emissions that employees engage directly with because they are their own emissions from their business trips.
Exactly, and it's one of the few categories where individuals can actually take action, make a difference. If you look at other supply chain issues, then it's down to different departments within a company. But travel, everybody can make a difference there.
Okay, but the noise is gone and focus on real progress, which also sounds positive. Okay. So, Ben, are you going to be the most skeptical person, as you usually are?
The half glass full German. Yeah, so my straight answer is a little bit aligning with what Jesko said. I would say we saw, at least around my colleagues, bold moves until 2024. All companies really have put sustainability as a priority, put up ESG reports, asked the suppliers and travel agencies for tremendous amount of data tomorrow, and in good quality. And so they've really increased this, and would not like now that if the politicians from this morning would still be in the room to hear that. I think in 2025, my answer is it's now silent signals. And as Jesko said, as the communication is down, and I think one of the major reasons is the uncertainty from politicians around regulations and omnibus and all this, because companies follow the order of when they are pushed for reporting and stuff, and as soon as they see the door is open for a little pause, or I don't need to do this, they stop the priority, they stop the budgets and all this. And so because there's so much zigzag from the politicians on this topic, that's why I think in 2025, the reaction from most companies is we don't invest as much, we do it more silently. And as you said, like the reports on the ESG have not been as loud and bold as before, so I can confirm this. Yeah, that's an unfortunate signal that there is a reaction to the political environment there and regulation from corporates. But I still think, and I think this is important for this audience, is that companies are still working on the foundation. They're still tracking the emissions because they started with an ESG report which needs to be released each year, and so they still need this data. So this will not go away. And the other aspect is, unfortunately, the procurement teams. And I think you guys can sing a song about this. It's not, these 100 questions about sustainability will stay. They will not go away, I'm sorry. So yeah, so silent signals, but the foundation will remain and the tracking of emissions.
Okay, and Parexel is a US-based firm. Like, do you see this because of the American, headquarter, that there's more reaction towards the political climate?
I think our company is in a unique position, as I mentioned, because we are working in the pharma industry, which works not aligned with what current US administration wants them to do, because they are still committing to their SBTI and net zero goals. So that's why we are doubling down on our sustainability efforts, but I'm seeing from colleagues in US very different behavior in shifting this. So I think it's a mixed bag. It depends on in which industry companies in US are. So I definitely, for pharma, I'm not seeing this. For others, yes. I think also the software industry, they also keep on pushing and investing. So it's a mixed bag, but definitely the communication to the outside has been softened a lot to apply with the guidance from US administration. So it's a very different story what happens in the company than what is visible publicly outside.
Yeah, and this echoes exactly what Jesko was saying. So thank you for sharing these perspectives. And actually now I would like to share some trends that GBTA has been measuring, if the slides work. And they do. Okay, let's me rewind a bit. So with GBTA, we launched last year something that we've called our Acceleration Challenge, when we are benchmarking corporates on their efforts to decarbonize their business travel program. I was very excited to be previewing all of the scores, but unfortunately I cannot share what the score is for 2025 because this is under embargo until the announcement at our conference in 2 weeks. But what I can share are some of the trends, and I think it's probably what matters for this audience. So we worked with very smart people at Accenture, Jesko was one of them, to develop a methodology to be able to assess and measure progress for corporate travels across 4 levers, which is emission tracking, travel decisions, sustainable procurement, and decarbonization investment. So this is a maturity survey that goes out to a lot of corporates, and this year we were lucky to have almost 300 companies from 33 countries that participated in this benchmarking exercise, and that together represent close to 20 billion annually in business travel spent. So the way the score works is that it's a scale from 0, showing no activity, to 5, showing leading practice. And what is great about this benchmark is that a 5 is achievable today. Like, companies can get there. You know, we're not talking about, you know, green airplanes, or it's all things that corporate can do. And last year, which was our first annual benchmark, when we measured this, the score, and this is what the arrow is showing, was a 1.3. So this was sobering, if I can say. Like, we hoped that we would be more advanced, but it is what it was. And we just were able to say with certainty that the industry is still in planning phase. And also what this gave us was all of the levers that we can actually push forward to make sure that we make progress. And now we're in the middle of crunching all of this data to know the score for this year. And what I can tell you without being able to disclose the score is that we're making progress, but unfortunately it's too slow. And you probably heard this before, we don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, to meet our 2050 net zero targets. What this also showed us, because the way the dashboard works is that, you know, we can filter by region, by travel, like travel program size, but also by industry sector, is that global travel programs are making progress, but those programs manage more locally, and especially in the Americas and in Europe, actually their scores decreased, while in APAC scores increase. So that was interesting to see, because we've talked about the headwinds in Europe and in America, and probably, you know, this is factoring into these results. And in terms of the maturity scores per industry segment, and, you know, this relates to what Olivia and also Ben were saying, some industries are doing much better than others. And again, when you see, you know, the top of those 2 columns is the finance, banking, and insurance sector, but also consulting and professional services, that is doing much better than average. But again, it's because for these companies, their business travel emissions are a very significant amount of their total emissions. So now, to try to answer the question of bold moves and silent signals with data, I'm still pleased to say that we measured that some business travel practices are really gaining traction. And I would even say they're almost becoming mainstream. So Ben, this is, you know, data tracking and all of the things you're doing for Parexel. We're seeing now that 71% of companies are tracking their business travel emissions, and 58% are reporting them. We also see great progress on the point of booking display, and we had our friends from Travelist earlier on the stage talking about this. It's incredibly important to have sustainability data at the point of booking to be able to guide these decisions. And also smarter travel. And if you think about it, this is where a big opportunity with corporate and business travel is, because if you're asking individual travelers to pick the low carbon flights. Like, this is incredibly difficult to do. You know, people are looking at costs and convenience, but when it comes to corporate travel, there are policies, and corporates can encourage or even mandate sustainable practices in their programs. And we're now seeing that it's 60% of companies that have sustainability considerations in their policies, and we hope that soon we're gonna be able to claim that this is 100%. Then silent signals. I think it's important also to show positive steps in areas that are maybe more niche at the moment, but are really high impact areas. So this is supplier engagement or sustainable procurement. And we see that it's more than a third of companies when they go, you know, with their RFPs to hotels, to airlines, to ground transports, they're actually asking about sustainability efforts and benchmarking these alongside costs and other, you know, factors that go into procurement decisions. Carbon budget, again, a very powerful tool to encourage good practices, but also start building budgets if you couple it with a carbon fee to finance some of the efforts. So this is where one of the practices where we saw the biggest jump, with 18% of companies now having carbon budgets, and then Scope 3 SAF. And this went from 12% last year to 15% this year. So it's great to see some progress, but again, that's not fast enough. We do need these demand signals from corporate to help, you know, send a demand signal to scale the market. So this is all I wanted to share in terms of stats. Now I'm really excited to turn over to the panel to get their insights and perspectives on what I've shared. But I just wanted to share the QR code because, again, I would have hoped to be able to share the full results, but I can't right now. But in 2 weeks, when we're going to unveil the report, I want to make sure that you can all see the full picture and the full stats. So now if I can unpack the results with the panel and first turn over to Ben. I have a question, Ben, given the dual role you described in terms of being both a travel lead and a sustainability lead in your company on emissions tracking and target setting. And I wanted to ask you what you're seeing in the space in terms of, you know, where the data is coming from, but also how companies are turning this data into action that helps them meet their targets.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. So emissions tracking, it's a painful exercise, and it remains. But I think companies now got a good hand on getting the data from the travel agency, from the hotel providers, from the rental car companies, from the credit card, from the expense. So they're using it from all tools. And I think that's, even if AI shouldn't be mentioned because it's the buzzword, but this helps us to normalize this data a lot. Because before we were like crunching numbers and it was still tough to get to the set of truths. And I think it's a beautiful, good example of where AI is now helping to normalize the data. And I think a lot of companies are doing this now. There are also a lot of consulting companies there helping companies where travel managers don't have their own resources. So the emissions tracking, I think everybody has now reached the baseline level of getting air, hotel, and car rental at least, I guess. And I think now, and using maybe simple stuff like DEFRA, but I think a lot of companies with tracking in the next years will enhance their data quality to, first of all, get to better calculation methods and adding also ground transportation and meals. And once they're adding ground transportation and meals tracking, their emissions will go up massively, I promise, because everybody thinks, oh, that's just tail-end emissions. It's gigantic. So if you see travel managers panicking, they might have just added ground transportation and meals to their emission report. And so this will continue. So I'm seeing that, again, this is an exercise which will get easier through AI, through more companies who are offering the service on the target setting and reduction. This is where I'm seeing mixed bags because, first of all, the technology is not there at the moment to support this easily. So we are booking basically through online booking tools. We're giving them. These are interesting tools which look like 1980 designed. Yeah, so they're not as nice as the leisure tools which are out there, and they simply are designed for mostly put out the lowest logical fare for something, but the lowest logical and factor in emissions, the tools can't do it at the moment. So this will take a while to steer travelers there. So at the moment we're doing this mostly by setting policies, by telling people what to do, for example, pushing for rail over air on certain things. So that's what I'm seeing, and this then leads to some reductions, but it's only a little bit in terms of what's finally possible.
And in terms of, and actually it's going to bridge to the topic of travel decision, but when you set your policies, are there some policies that are easier to push on your employees than others, for instance, the switch to rail?
Definitely. I mean, the air-to-rail switch is a very easy one, and also encouraging people to take electric rental cars and try to ask it, or on the leasing cars, the longer-term cars, that's definitely easy possible. On flights, it's not easy. I mean, there is this logic about don't take a connection, but it's also debatable. But asking people to know on an A350 blah, blah, blah aircraft, oh, it's less than the 777, this is too much detail. They wouldn't know. Yeah, so there it's harder, and we're getting there. On hotels, it's very hard to tell them. Like, don't pick a hotel with a pool. I don't know, but it's tough to get there. So that's why the policy at the moment focuses a lot on asking people, unfortunately, to take less trips. So avoid trips, combining trips, because this is currently the easiest way, and also the CFO is happy if costs are going down.
Okay. So now I would love, Ziad, to get your reaction on this, because my question is about how do you see companies encouraging their employees to travel more sustainably? We talked about policies, but I would love your perspective from a technology perspective and point of booking activation.
Depend which technology. If it's 1980, you have to try other technology. We can show you, Ben, later on. But let's move on the topic. I think we're being very hard with the corporates. We did a lot. And when I was saying Europe train is key. And regulation is key. 50% of the spend that used to be on airlines goes to train now. In Italy, in Germany, in France, they moved. And it's 75% of the CO2 emission. So you moved already 50%, which is good. Then we worked on expense tool with zero paper. If you go to Italy, it's fully digital. We love about Italy, but they are much in advance. Everything is e-invoicing, no paper. Done. Train, done. So when you go to airlines, I have questioned our clients and some common clients like Safran. They have a way to 2030 to go minus 50%. And today, and he gave me the green light to say that they have reached minus 43% already. Electrical cars, if you go to the Aéroport de Paris, 1 car out of 2 is electrical. Very clear. They have no choice. They go with Hertz, electrical, and they have to book. Then when they sort a hotel, they need a booking tool that can provide them a booking with a parking that has a plug. Done. So in hotel, we have did the measurement thanks to Advito that are doing a great job at BCD. It's minus 10% about the hotels that they're booking. And it's the whole chain, is the supplier and the client, because 1 booking out of 4 is going on an eco-label hotel. Not because the traveler has decided only, but because the hotel also has upgraded their offer and doing the effort to do it. So 1 out of 4 is minus 10%. So you did the hotel, you did the train, and now the airlines. The airlines, we discussed with Airbus, Safran. We have the aerospace industry, which are leader in Europe, and they are showing the example on that. When you choose an Airbus new generation, you're reducing 25%. For example, at Safran, when you go Paris to Dubai, they have to go Air France. And it's immediately minus 25% of decarbonization. I agree, Airbus is pushing for SAF, but the world cannot produce SAF for everyone. And I had an interesting feedback that Raphael is coming this afternoon to another table. And you say, do you know where the consumption of CO2 comes with the travel? Do you know that, Delphine? That on 100% is 80% in the production and not in the déplacement, I say the trip. So we have to move to SAF. It's 2%. We cannot produce more today. But when I'm asking to my supplier, I'm asking him to make an effort of 10%. And they're going to talk about what did they do with EasyJet that was not. So I think we're doing a lot with airlines, choosing the right supplier, moving to trains at 50%, choosing the right hotel, and the electric cars. So, and then it will depend on the size of the company. If we are global, we saw it in your study, and you're an SME. On SME, yes, we as a supplier's booking tool, we have a full program that's it's switch for green, and you provide it, and you don't oppose it with the sustainability program. So we put it inside, and at the end, when we ask them, are we going to pay a higher price? Say, let's be fair, yes. Let's accept it, yes. It's like when you buy an electric car. It's not cheaper than the thermic one. It's with the options, so it's going to be a higher price, but we know how to control. And regulation in 2027, you have to do reportings. We have clients such as Deloitte. They are asking for evidence. So are we trusting the data that's coming from the producer? Because we're getting from the supplier. So we have third party, like the German tool, Squake, that takes it, benchmark it, and then give you the real consumption. So you inform the traveler, but you give the information to the procurement and the CFO. Because at the end, in 2027, it will be euro, because it's either a tax or a benefit. So we are doing a lot. It's taking time. We have first movers showing the example by the business travel, but it's counterintuitive that you say, I'm going to travel, but I'm not going to make CO2 decarbonization. So we're trying to fit it like this and to be as an investment. So I'm very positive about these topics with corporates that we're handling, yes. Yeah. I don't know if it was clear.
Yeah, no, it was a very comprehensive response. And, you know, it started with travel decision, but you're absolutely right. Like, you know, travel decision can only happen if the supply chain... The whole chain is green as well, and this includes the ground transport, the producer of the airline, aviation, everything. No, so you're right. And actually, I would love, Olivia, to get your views on this specific element and how actually this demand signal from the buyers can help suppliers innovate. And I also wanted to know, you know, how can corporates recognize and partners with airlines and hotels that are the forefront of climate action, because that's also difficult to navigate in terms of all of the information that suppliers put out there. So how can, you know, corporates navigate this?
Yeah, I think it's a really complex topic, and we've had over here a really great example of Safran, who really have prioritized decarbonisation in their travel program. They're an airline manufacturer, so you know they're embedded in the industry. They've done an amazing job. They've invested. They've prioritized. And then over here, Ben was talking about the complexities of data and how do you know and how can you make decisions. And I think that you know there is such a huge spectrum of knowledge and willingness across the industry. And I think that feeds through at every single kind of point in the supply chain. So when it comes to how can, you know, how can the buyers and the suppliers work together, or how can companies such as mine that's in the middle of them all play a role, it's quite challenging to kind of say this is what you do and this is what you don't do. I think there's a lot of misperceptions out there. At the moment, we're seeing, and we published some research, I think it was yesterday, BCD, a research survey of our travel buyers around procurement. And in terms of prioritization, the top 3 answers were cost-related, and the next 3 answers were process-related. Okay, so it's all about cost and how you make the process more efficient. And that's not to say that sustainability isn't part of that mix, but it's not at the forefront. And there is a huge perception that sustainability costs more, sustainable travel costs more. And actually, my colleagues at Advito that Ziad mentioned, who are our kind of in-house consulting firm, did some really interesting research earlier this month that actually shows that sustainable travel programs cost less. You know, so if you're being thoughtful about when you travel and why you travel, and you know, not traveling is a strategy you can use to reduce your emissions. But if you're thoughtful about that, if you're thoughtful about how you can direct your travelers to make good choices around rail or around which flight they take, and actually there is good information now with the travel impact model that Google developed that can really kind of, you know, you can see the information there. You don't need to know which aircraft is more efficient than another. You can, you know, even rail overall costs less. I think they found it was a 48% reduction by moving to rail. Anyway, there's a lot of misperceptions there. There's the other misperception is that how do you know what's a sustainable? How do you know how to make a decision with your airline or with your hotels? And I think we get bogged down in that because there is a lot of information out there. And I think that you guys at GBTA have done a really good job at putting together procurement standards that at least provide a guideline. But we need to get beyond this. You know, we need to stop saying, oh, we can't do it because it's too difficult. There is information there. The suppliers can push that forward. Buyers need to be open to it. I was really interested that over a third of the respondents to your survey are baking sustainability into their decision making. I was surprised it was that high, honestly.
That's who are asking the questions, but it's even less that are taking decisions based on the information they collect.
So I think there just needs to be an openness, and we need to kind of get over these negative perceptions that it's too expensive or it's too difficult, because it's not, and we have examples.
Yeah.
And there are others.
We need to do a better job of surfacing these stories when actually sustainability is a cost saving. We unfortunately ran out of time. I wanted to get Jesko to talk about one area where actually it still costs more, which is SAF. But maybe, you know, if you want to talk about SAF, find us after this panel. Can I just get a very quick closing round, just for each of you to tell me what gives you hope? I would love, you know, if there's a change that is either technology, regulatory, or cultural that you think is going to be transformative for sustainable travel, or an innovation or trend that you're very excited about. It can be one sentence or just a few words to close this discussion on a bit of optimism. Ben?
Absolutely, yeah. No, what gives me hope is that we have the tools, the technology, and the products to help us decarbonize. So it's not about inventing it anymore. The stuff is there. We know how to do it. We've got better engines, we've got SAF, we've got the reporting. So all the tools are in the toolbox. That gives me hope. It's now about creating the demand signal to the market so that everybody can invest. It would be worst if we still would have to figure out how to do it. So this gives me hope that the toolbox is there available.
Thank you, Ben. Olivia?
And building on that, not only is the toolbox available, but there are plenty of examples of where it's happening already. So there's huge hope there. There's whatever it is that you want to do, you can find an example that you can replicate to do it.
Thank you. Ziad?
The human energy that we're putting in it is the cheapest one. We're giving the choice to the people, and when I talk to my client, is the way to recruit talent in the company. The young generation are looking for that. So the human and the change of mindset of that are pushing us to move forward on that. So human first.
Thank you. Jesko?
Yeah, I would also encourage the audience on two things, right? So look into SAF. So we've seen only 1 out of 7 companies, even in our sample, which are already, you know, the more advanced companies are making SAF purchases today. So clearly an area that still has a lot of potential. And then look at the leaders in your respective industries, right? I think there's very, very strong examples of people already decarbonizing corporate travel. In some cases, you know, I'll take consulting, my own industry. We've seen more than 50% reduction of emissions per employee between 2019 and now, 5 years later. So that is massive progress, and those types of leaders are basically there in every industry. You know, look at those examples, check what these people are doing, and basically follow and do the same thing. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you for closing on this note of optimism.
Thank you.